let's dive into the program, and I hand over to Jerome.
Thank you very much, Daniel. It works, yeah. Great. So good morning, everybody. So I will guide you through the history of Fly. So it all started in 2020 when the former director of human and robotic exploration at ESA decided to open a flight opportunity for an astronaut with a physical disability. So this led to the creation of the Fly initiative, and with the creation of the initial phase that was called Foundation. So this phase started at that time, so back to 2020, and we had two main objectives for that phase. So the very first one was to say, okay, so now we have to implement that. So where do we start? So what types of disability can we include in our astronaut selection that was planned for 2021? So we dived into the high-level requirements to be a professional astronaut, and we decided to go for three types of disabilities. So the very first one was the short stature. The second one was the leg length difference, and the third one was the lower limb deficiency. So once we say that, that was great. So we've launched the selection of 2021. But in parallel of that, also we had to make sure that we did not identify any no-goes, and for that we worked in close collaboration with NASA to see if among those three types of disabilities, one of them would bring to a no-go. So 2022 marked a big milestone in the Fly study because basically we reached two main outcomes. So the very first one was that we have not identified no-goes for the three types of disabilities. And the second one was the selection of John that joined us to support the Fly initiative. So with those two milestones achieved, we closed the foundation phase and we moved to the next phase that was called Feasibility Study. So in this phase, the goal was completely different. Here, our objective was really to assess all the technical, operational, programmatic, legal, and also financial aspects to fly someone with a physical disability like John to undertake a long duration mission to the International Space Station as a fully integrated crew member. So to do that, we had to identify where John's disability or his prosthesis might be an issue to implement such a mission. Once we've done that, again, we have to start somewhere. So ESA established an international working group, so where we gathered experts from ESA, NASA, but also SpaceX. And we've assessed the five main key areas of a space mission. So you might remember back to July 2024 when we did a previous press conference. So we've assessed the training area. So we've assessed also all the ISS operations domain, the spacecraft operations, but also all the medical aspects, as well as the crew support domain. So at the end of 2024, we've assessed more than 80 areas of consideration, leading to the conclusion of the feasibility study phase of Fly.
Thank you very much, Jerome. And Daniel, tell us, what has all this work led to? Where are we at now?
So first and above all, as nicely presented by Jerome, there is no showstopper. And this allowed us at the beginning of this year to go to the next phase. And the next phase means now mission ready, meaning are we in a situation which allows us to go to specific training for a mission? And there are basically three main elements in this mission specific activities which are going on right now. One is what type of scientific and research activities are we going to conduct in such a mission? And of course, there are a lot of questions, not only medical, which are worth to be investigated, and we are focusing on that. Second is the qualification of the prosthesis itself, because not only John has to be ready, but also the prosthesis. And third, of course, is the medical certification of John. And these are the three topics which we have studied right now, and which is ongoing, of course.
Thank you very much. And of course, you've mentioned two topics that I would like John to talk about a bit more, please. John, can you tell us about the scientific aspects of the work that's been done? And as well, can you tell us about the static hardware?
Absolutely, yeah. And one of the cornerstones of human spaceflight is science. And to maximize the impact of what we're doing here at ESA, we have already launched what we call an announcement of opportunity, which is a call for scientific experiments, technological demonstrations that could be performed in a potential mission for someone with a disability like mine on a mission. And so in September last year, this announcement was made. And at the moment, the current status is that we've had 17 proposals. And what's interesting is this have come from principal investigators from 8 different nationalities across 7 topics. So 17 proposals received in total. But this is not just in academia as well. This is both across academia and industry. So that's where we are with the announcement of opportunity so far.
Hardware?
So I have been connected with a company called Robotic for well over a decade. They're a German global market leader in human bionics, and I've been using their prosthetic hardware for a number of years. And they have been designing wearable technology for over 100 years. And I always come back to something that is one of our values here at ESA, is that at the center of their business is making the lives of people better by what they do. And I think this is something that's really important, and the message that we are sending out from what we're doing here at ESA. Actually, with regards to the nuts and bolts of the hardware certification, anything that flies to the space station, whether it be a camera, a laptop, an ice cream machine, prosthetic hardware, a coffee machine, it has to be certified to fly. And that is a long, rigorous, detailed process. So we've been working with our independent safety office at ESA, with our independent safety engineers, closely with Robotic, to achieve or work towards certification. And we're working towards, by October this year, we're hoping to get to what we call phase 2 of the safety review process. So that should a flight opportunity become available, we are positioned ready to complete that certification process without rushing. It gives us time to develop solutions to problems that we might come across. And actually, in fact, some of the things we have identified so far in working through this certification process, we have already developed a couple of technologies which are going to trickle down and have benefits for prosthetic users in wider society as well. And this is very much what we're about. This concept of space for Earth, that what we do in space also benefits people on Earth.
Talked about the science, we've talked about the prosthetic hardware, but one aspect we haven't touched on yet is really everything to do with the medical aspects of the mission ready phase. Alessandro, as medical advisor, can you give us a bit of background on that, please?
Of course. Of course I can. So as most of you might know, the ISS, the International Space Station, has been so far an exquisite example of international collaboration in space. And the station itself constantly hosts astronauts from several countries in the world. So that's why a common medical board has been established at the beginning of the ISS program in 1998, and that set the medical criteria for all the astronauts that will work and live on board the station. So in this medical board, all the major agencies that are partner of the ISS program, so namely NASA, the American one, Roscosmos, that is the Russian one, JAXA, the Japanese one, the CSA, the Canadian ones, and finally even ESA, meet together monthly to certify and constantly review and update the medical criteria necessary to fly someone on board the station, and constantly update them according to the new discoveries and the new knowledge we acquired while keep going with the International Space Station program. So this board, as I mentioned, can clear someone to fly according to to fly or to train to fly according to 3 different criteria. So we have the MDC1 criteria, that is the medical disposition category 1, that is the highest level of certification that an astronaut could achieve, is the one that will clear him to live and work on board the station for a long duration mission, and namely the bar, the threshold between a long and a short duration mission is set at 30 days. So everything that is longer than 30 days is considered as a long duration mission, and everything that is shorter, of course, is considered a short duration mission. And all the medical clearance for short duration mission is the category 2 criteria, while we have the so-called MDC3, that is the medical category which allows you to begin to train for mission on board the ISS. But maybe you have some minor medical issues that could be fixed and thus review to clear you to fly on a short or long duration mission. So these are the 3 categories, and onward, of course, someone could even be non-certified to fly to space. That's why being selected by a single agency doesn't automatically translate in being certified to fly on the station. Okay, and especially in the case of the Fly project, we had to carefully analyze and discuss and on medical and even the technological challenges that are required to fly someone with a disability like the Jones one, and that basically the outcome of the feasibility study in the report that brought us to present John's case to the MSMB, so the medical board, and it won't be to spoiler you the outcome of that of that meeting that will be on.
Thank you very much, Alessandro. So I guess, Daniel, you'll be able to give us an update on how that went.
Yeah, thank you very much. You see the colleagues work and I make then the announcement, but it's really great. And we are really proud of that because we have a concrete outcome after only 1 month. And it is as highlighted by Alessandro that ESA writes history here by the first clearance, the first certification, as Alessandro said, by all the partners of the International Space Station for the highest clearance from a medical point of view. John is today certified as astronaut who can fly on a long duration mission on the International Space Station. And I think this is an incredible step ahead in our ambition to, as mentioned at the beginning of the discussion, to broaden the access to society, to space. It's a great achievement. And I would like to conclude by thanking sincerely my team who did an amazing job here. And I'm just excited to see the clearance for step 2 and 3.
Thank you very much and congratulations. So we're now going to open the floor to questions. I'll give the chance to the room to ask the first questions, should you have any, and then I'll make sure that I check the WebEx chat. So please, for those of you who are connected online, make sure you put again your media outlet, your name, and then that you write your questions. You can also send them to media@esa.int, or you can send them to our WhatsApp group chats if you happen to be on them. Now, before I don't see any questions just yet in the room. So before I give you time a bit to think about your questions, I do have a question for you, John. Okay. That's okay. I think I'm not the only one who's thinking that, but obviously this is quite an important milestone. You're now the first person with a physical disability that's medically certified to fly to the International Space Station. It's a world first. How does it feel?
I feel hugely proud. But I mean, I have to say, I was relatively passive in the process. I just have to be medically healthy and demonstrate that I can do, the required tasks. So I was relatively passive from that point of view. I'm lucky that I am as fit and healthy as I am. But what's really interesting is this isn't about me. This is way bigger than that, because this is a cultural shift. This is something that has not been done before. And like Daniel said at the beginning, just because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And actually, the reception has been very warm and positive from the international partners there because of the detailed, methodical, exhaustive work we've done here with the feasibility study that we have presented to our international partners. They have only been able to go, well, yeah, why not? Of course. And so I'm proud for me, yes, but I am proud of the mindset shift that this has achieved.
Is there any question in the room? Yes, please. And if you don't mind, just your name and your media evidence. The microphone there will pick up your sound, hopefully. Thank you.
And for this slide, always said that
Absolutely, Bert. So this forms part of Mission Ready as well. So going through the hardware certification process is going to be one of the core areas of this next phase of Fly Mission Ready. And we are still using commercial off-the-shelf hardware. And one of the reasons for this is because early discussions indicated that it would be easier to make some minor modifications to existing prostheses than it would be to do completely new designs specifically, for single case use, essentially. And it's going really well. Again, really enjoying working with Autobot. The process is incredibly granular. There's a lot of detail to cover, and it gives you a huge amount of confidence in the process of how hardware actually has to get to space. But it's really interesting. We've learned a couple of things. We're trying to optimize socket technology, and also we have developed a small adapter, what we call a quick change adapter, so that I can interchange the terminal devices of the prosthesis quite quickly to meet the criteria of any emergency procedures required on board, and these sorts of things. And these are some of the trickle down effects of this process. So it's going well.
There was a question from David Beck online from SWR, which actually covers that. You mentioned, he says, John, you mentioned that they are prosthetic technologies that trickle down for broader use. And if you have any other examples, I'm not sure. I think you've already covered that a little bit. Any further examples?
Yeah, I think this will evolve. There will be things that we learn and understand through the certification process, but there will also be things that we learn and understand more about through the process of a space flight.
Questions from the room? Otherwise, I'll read a question that we've received. It's quite long, so please bear with me. So this is a question from Jennifer Stange, who is a journalist with the German public broadcaster for DLF. She's currently working on a piece about your journey, John, from a Paralympic sprinter to astronaut and the groundbreaking flight project. You were a Paralympic sprinter before joining ESA's astronaut reserve. What made you decide to apply for the astronaut program? And then there's other questions, but I'll start with that.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Do you know, I have always loved learning. I've always been incredibly curious about the way things work, but I never dreamt of actually being an astronaut. And my love of science and understanding how things work took me to medicine to train for and work as a trauma and orthopedic surgeon. And then this opportunity came across my path where I discovered that the European Space Agency were looking for someone with a physical disability, not necessarily to be an astronaut. The chance at that time was very, very slim. But to do the feasibility study in this Fly project. And I read the person specification and the criteria and what it would involve, and it literally ticked every box for me that I wanted out of something. It was the adventure, the challenge, the science, the communication, bringing my knowledge and skills and expertise from my background of I've got a degree and a master's in sports and exercise science with biomechanics and gait analysis. Also mentioned my medical background, which is very focused on the musculoskeletal system and orthopedics and being a medical doctor. There's also a lot of material science and engineering as well in orthopedics. And all these things just all kind of come together in this one opportunity to potentially use all those skills. And to that end, I couldn't avoid applying.
I'll give you the second part of the question then. Obviously, the Fly project is a pioneering project, and in a way, you're also a test subject, a subject matter expert, and a test subject. So, did it ever feel strange or even unsettling to be part of this experiment? Was there a moment where you thought this is really unusual? And did anything about the results of the Fly project surprise you? And again, that's from Jennifer Stanger.
I never felt it to be unusual, and I never felt it strange to be involved as a test subject, as you put it, in the study. What do I want to say? Excuse me. No, I was very pragmatic about it. Actually, I was very confident that I would be able to offer my expertise and my knowledge to the people doing the study to push it forward and help contribute to the success that it is today. If anything, maybe occasionally, this is what I wanted to say a moment ago. Occasionally, I felt very slightly vulnerable that I was the only one. At this stage, what happens if I break my leg or all of a sudden I'm no longer medically fit? What happens to this? So there's maybe that aspect at the back of my mind a little bit. But now, what was the final part of the question?
Did anything surprise you? And I think that's really a question for all of you, because you all had to go through this project together.
Yeah, the only thing that surprised me was, as an athlete, it was my job to prove myself to be capable with a physical disability. It was, no one questioned it. It's like, you have a disability and you're meant to be elite and awesome at sport. As a surgeon, my disability did not matter. It didn't affect my ability to be a good surgeon. And the thing that surprised me most is that all of a sudden I was coming into this environment and I was being questioned about whether I could do something or not. And this felt strange. So, and this mindset, or having an awareness that of other people's mindsets and other people's perceptions, that actually surprised me.
Thank you for that. I might ask that same question to Jerome, because you were Fly project manager, so you
Yes.
might have encountered some surprises or
No,
something
exactly.
that was challenging. I'm not sure.
So challenging, yeah, at the beginning of the project. So that was really my feeling is, okay, we will go through a lot of difficulties from a technical perspective. So yeah, because probably we'll have to adapt a lot of things. And so probably in the spacecraft, in the ISS, to make it happen. And at the end, so the outcome of the feasibility study phase was really surprising to me. And also when we went through the whole process, because basically the main difficulty that we faced was not really technical, but this is what you mentioned, John, was really about the mindset. So people have really a preconception of what a person with a physical disability can achieve. And you have to go again, explain again, and and demonstrate very obvious things that you would never ask to normal person, basically. But yeah, and so that was really what surprised me, because at the end the technical part was really a very minor aspect of the study, but really the shift in mindset that we had to achieve was huge. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, a question from Martin Morala of Astroaventura, a Spanish media outlet. So Martin would like to ask, which is the time frame that the program is looking for launching John to the ISS? So we're not quite there yet, I believe. And Daniel, you can tell us more about that. And he also says, ESA has publicly said that you won't rush the program. Safety first must be the approach. But is there any date in your minds? Does the expiration date of the International Space Station play a role in it? Perhaps one for Daniel.
Yeah, you didn't ask me the question on the previous question, so I will seize the opportunity to give you also my perspective, because we speak here really about the tip of the iceberg, all the nice part. But let's not underestimate all the elements linked to safety procedures when you operate on the International Space Station. And in all honesty, I was personally expecting some eventual showstopper there, and I'm really happy to see that we went through that. That's behind us, and this is really good news. That's an amazing one. Now, to the question you asked me, I have to say there is a sunny part. It's John is now certified to fly to the International Space Station. The shadow part is now he's an astronaut like everybody else who wants to fly to the space station, waiting for a mission assignment. And the mission assignment is, as you know, the prerogative of our Director General. We have a number of candidates on that. And it's a good sign that you are part of this pool, John, but you have to take also the other side of it. And today it's clear we cannot give any date. What I can tell you is the International Space Station is planned to retire in 2030 today. That's a fact. But we discussed this week with our member states also how we want to position European human spaceflight activities in the post-ISS phase. We have an ambition and will come out. So I think there will be a lot of opportunities during the lifetime of the International Space Station, but also beyond.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And there's another question for you, by David Beck of SWR. So David is wondering how close the collaboration is with NASA and SpaceX, and whether the crackdown on DEI programs have had an effect on collaborations or specifically on this program, this project.
I have to say the partnership of the International Space Station is now going on since decades, and there is a real trust, and there are very clear procedures. So as it has been underlined by all my colleagues, in fact, we were judged by the partners on the quality of the work and about the detail of the work. And I think the evidence brought through technical discussions, operational discussions, medical discussions, just showed that we can go ahead. We are now entering a world which is changing a bit from a DEI perspective from one of our partners of the International Space Station. We have our European values. We will continue with our European values, but we'll stick to the procedures, and I see no reason why we would change our approach in this context or get influenced on that.
Thank you very much. Is there a question from the room? Otherwise, I'll go back to online questions. I'll go back to the online questions. So another question from David Beck of SWR. Does John's certification means that he is now part of the astronaut corps, or is he still a member of the ESA astronaut reserve?
He is qualified as an astronaut to fly to the International Space Station. He is today part of a member of the reserve. And the main objective for me is to fly all our astronauts, part of the career path or part of the reserve, to give them a flight opportunity.
Thank you very much. And actually talking about sort of missions, I'm a bit quite curious, Alessandro, because you're a flight surgeon and you're a medical advisor in this case for the flight project. You do both. But I'm curious, has this been obviously a very different experience? Has there been a personal highlight or anything that you've learned from this experience that's quite different from what you've done before?
Well, my idea in that, as Daniel has mentioned, we are approaching the end of the ISS program. So it might be somewhere 5 to 10 years from now. And one of the major scope of the ISS program is to get a deeper understanding of human physiology in space. So basically, we wanted to know what happened to the human body in the long term, in the mid-long term. So in the time that would be needed for us to explore it further into the solar system. So 6 months, that is the average duration of the long duration mission, is pretty much a time that is required to get to Mars. And that's not by chance. I mean, that was one of the idea behind it. I mean, let's see what's happened to my human body in a 6 months period. So we'll still be able to still be healthy. I mean, once approach the Mars orbit or a similar distance into space, right? I mean, given other factors like the radiation, etc., that plays a minor role in LEO as they will do eventually in deep space. And that to say that I think that so in order to complete that report that was needed to ask for John's certification to MSMB, we really had to dig one by one into each one of the requirements that were established by the MSMB, so by the medical board, and to see if and how much John disability would impact the meet of those requirements, and if a mitigation was needed and feasible, reasonable to do. So that to say that I think that our capability, so the agreement we reached with the other partner agencies in clearing Jones to fly is one of the highest achievements from the medical perspective of the whole ISS program, because that means that we have acquired such in-depth knowledge into what happens to the human body in space and in our capabilities to mitigate the detrimental impact that spaceflight has to each one of our biologists. I mean, because we were not designed by the evolution to live in space. We have acquired so much knowledge that now we feel confident enough to fly someone that has a disability. At the very beginning of the space age, I mean, only extremely trained and super fit individuals, test pilots were selected to fly to space, not because that level of fitness was strictly required, but just because we did not know. We had no clue on how the microgravity environment would have impacted our physiology. Now we have acquired so much knowledge that we know and we feel confident that we could fly more and more people to space. And I think that's the best possible outcome from the ISS program on the medical part. Then there is the technology part, the scientific part. And
Thank you.
that's my 2 cents.
Thank you very much, Alessandro. And there's another question for John from Jennifer Sanger from the German public broadcaster. So you said you had been asked, could you do this? Could you go give an example, a situation you remember?
There are obviously physical activity related scenarios, but it's more in the planning of undertaking an activity where you have a team wanting to achieve a goal. Say, we want this person to demonstrate they can do this. And it might be sea survival training, it might be winter survival training or things like this. I have to admit there was capability was not automatically assumed, whereas in my head, capability is automatically assumed. And it's that disconnect that we had to adjust to. And so I hope that through my time here and what we've achieved so far, that I've been able to change that mindset a little bit. And I have spoken to and had many conversations with people that unless I say otherwise, assume I can do it, which is sometimes difficult because I have a vested interest. And if you were a cynic, you would say that I was biased and had my own agenda. But no, and it's developing those relationships and that trust that I will, if I believe I will have a problem with it, that I will be honest and say that I will have a problem with it, but assume competence first of all.
Thank you very much for that answer, John. I see another question from Antoine Meunier, La Chronique Spatiale, and this one I believe is for Daniel. Daniel, you mentioned post-ISS. Does it mean that you are also considering moon missions?
Bonjour, Antoine. Yes, we are speaking about both low Earth orbit missions and moon missions. It's clear. The focus today in the first reply was to think, what are we going to secure as European presence in low Earth orbit after the International Space Station? And I think it's certainly step one in this type of mission we speak about today. But it's correct to assume that we have also our plans towards the moon.
Very good. And I got another question from Antoine Meunier. Did you identify possible opportunities, or would it be on a short mission, or are you concerned about the possible effects on the political choices made by the new American administration?
Well, today the qualification is the highest one, as Alessandro underlined, and the highest one means John is qualified from a medical point of view for a long duration mission on the International Space Station. Having said that, you are also aware that we announced that our colleagues, the part of the career path today, our objective is to fly all of them on a long duration mission before the end of the International Space Station. This is our European objective. Now, we are confident that we can work on that with our international partners. We have now, of course, to see what the new US administration will impose on the space program at large, on the space exploration program. It will probably have effects in low Earth orbit, on Moon, and on Mars, and we have to take it from there. So in this sense, today, the question is first and above all, how can we secure a maximum number of flight opportunities for our European astronauts? That's objective number one.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And I see that we have run out of questions. I'll just give it a second. The question from the audience. Sorry. Please go ahead.
Repeat again. That's certified for long.
Yeah, that's for me. So
If anyone didn't hear, I'll just say, does being certified for long duration missions mean that you're certified for EVAs?
So for the certification, so I will let Alessandro answer to that one. But what was clear from the beginning of the fly study was that EVAs would be excluded at this stage. So that was a case for the feasibility study. But as part of Mission Ready, we start also to investigate the possibility to perform extravehicular activities. So we've started some assessment on that. But officially, this is excluded from the scope that we have today for fly. Yeah.
And another question for you, Jerome, unless you want to complete that, John?
No, it was for Alessandro.
Of course.
So thank you for your question. So in this specific certification is the small note that says that we have to investigate further for the EVA, not because there is any sort of medical concern, but because from our side, from the ESA side, there was the assumption in the beginning, as mentioned by Jerome, that originally EVA was out of the scope of the feasibility study. And that impact all our requests to the medical board. But I'm confident, I mean, that if we decide to go for that path, I mean, since we have achieved the highest level of certification, and Jones during the whole feasibility study proved to being more than capable to undergo to every training, testing training that was required him to perform, I see no showstopper on that, and I'm confident to say that publicly. So, but the only, just to highlight, the only reason why there is that restriction is because it was stated from us on the assumptions at the very beginning of the report. So that impacted all evaluation by the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandro. And a question by Martin Morala again from Astroaventura. He would like to ask whether qualification is required for flying a second time in case a short flight is chosen for the first time.
So from a medical perspective, or?
I guess it's more from a certification perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's happened is that after each flight, the astronauts has to be reevaluated at the end of the period of rehabilitation, the post-flight rehabilitation period, which, I mean, as you can understand by yourself, it's shorter if the flight is shorter, and it's longer if the flight gets on longer, okay? So each time an astronaut comes back to Earth, from the medical board's perspective, it's not clear to fly immediately. He has to prove that after rehabilitation, he meets again the criteria that are needed. So in John's case, or in a case similar to John's one, I mean, the process would be just the same as for every other astronaut. So being it a short duration flight, a long duration flight, after the rehabilitation with a year period, they would be reintroduced to the medical board if the astronaut doesn't change his mind, I mean, you want to keep being an astronaut, so he needs to be recertified, and there would be no difference. There's no difference from what's happened to all the rest of the astronaut corps.
Very good. Thank you. A question from McFall of Spaceflight magazine. Is it possible that John could fly and do experiments on a UK-led short duration mission with Axiom in the future? The million-dollar question.
I can contribute to that, and maybe Daniel, you. Whilst this is still ongoing discussions between the UK Space Agency and Axiom, there is still nothing confirmed. It's a very interesting prospect, a UK short duration mission. But at the moment, there is nothing proposed. So it's very difficult to comment. I know that the UK Space Agency, if they did get that opportunity, science and outreach were the really two core things at the center of their ambition. And they have been very proactive in trying to be as prepared as possible should this translate into something. But at the moment, there is no change since, I think, December 23.
Just to complement with 2 points. So first and above all, from the ESA side, we continue to support the UK, but it is of course a UK sovereign decision. That's the first point. And the second point is whatever the mission architecture and financing scheme is today, we have the clearance to fly John. And this is the most important point, independent of the scheme.
Thank you. And I believe this concludes our media briefing for today. I don't see any further questions. I want to thank you again for your time and thank the journalists for joining us. Of course, if you have other questions, feel free to send them to media@esa.int and we'll be sure to put you in touch with the correct expert. Thank you so much and congratulations on this achievement, and we'll be following soon for the next phases, hopefully. So goodbye, everybody. Have a good day and thanks again. Thank you.
Thank you.